Hello there, Atheist Junior here, your friend and humble narrator. And today I'm coming to you guys with a video responding to this ridiculous hit piece by Ben Shapiro. So he's talking about the recent assassination of a healthcare CEO. And basically, Ben Shapiro is going to spend his time in this video completely misrepresenting the online reaction to this murder, basically. And what he's going to do is completely be partisan and say, "Oh, it's the radical left. It's the radical left who are celebrating the murder of this person," when it is obvious that there was a bipartisan response of cheers, positivity, people saying, "Yeah, screw that guy. I don't care that he got murdered," from the right and the left. And if you want proof of that, just look at the comment section of his video. Even his own fans told him, "Ben, you're wrong on this." So let's take a look at this video, and I'll add my commentary.
Well, folks, we have updates in the search for the murderer of the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson. He was, of course, on Wednesday, and there are some pretty deep ramifications for American society and all this. We'll get to that in a moment. First, time is running out. Daily Wire Plus is 50% off, but not for much longer. Get a full year of uncensored shows, exclusive series, documentaries, and more, all at half the price. Head on over to dailywire.com/cyberweek before it is too late. Alrighty, so on Wednesday, as we know, the United Health executive, Brian Thompson, was shot to death on the streets of New York. Authorities are still searching for the suspect at this point, according to the Wall Street Journal. Police are combing New York City for the suspect who used a Sharpie to write "deny, defend, and depose" on cartridges that are believed to have come out of his gun when it jammed, according to law enforcement officials. Some of those words are commonly associated with tactics insurers use to avoid paying claims. Investigators believe that the suspect may be staying or may have stayed at a hostel on Manhattan's Upper West Side. The NYPD hasn't publicly identified the person who ambushed Brian Thompson. However, they have released an image of the person, quote unquote, wanted for questioning. They released his face. He's smiling and wearing a hood in one of the photos as he appears to lean on a counter.
Ben, can they not afford teleprompters at the Daily Wire, Ben? Do you really have to read all of this, like looking down at your laptop the whole time?
Authorities are offering up a reward of up to 10 grand for information leading to an arrest in the case.
So they can give the guy a high five.
The real question in all of this is how Americans respond. So Taylor Lorenz, we talked about her yesterday. She is a psychotic former reporter for the Washington Post and the New York Times. She's totally insane. She was insane.
Oh, okay. So you're not poisoning the well at all before you tell us what this person said. No.
Insane on COVID. She was insane when it came to the supposed predations of people on the right who ought to, she said, be shut out of media and particularly social media. Well, now she is full-scale rallying in favor of the murderer. So she tweeted yesterday on Blue Sky, which is a weird left-wing echo chamber form of Twitter. There was a post put out by Blue Cross Blue Shield all about whether it was going to pay for anesthesia under its healthcare coverage. And she then tweeted out, quote, "And people wonder why we want these executives dead." So openly cheering the death of Brian Thompson. That wasn't her only post. Somebody put out a statement saying, quote, "Legislation idea. Healthcare executives and their families must be on the cheapest plan their company offers, and they aren't allowed to seek other care." And she wrote in all capital letters, "Endorse." Then she put out a post that showed a graphic of a happy star, like a star with a happy face and balloons, and the caption "CEO down." And
"Oh, I'm sad because it wasn't a Star of David."
She wrote, "Woke up to see this spammed in my group chats." And she said, "I am not."
So she posted something that somebody else posted in her group chat. Okay, so obviously this is hyperbole from this person, right? I think the reason that we're seeing these type of responses is, first of all, it's very easy to be edgy on the internet and to say things like this. But the reason that there has been such a positive response from the left and the right is because people, specifically Americans, are so jaded and fed up with the healthcare system in this country. And many of them have seen their family members, or they themselves have been denied insurance, and may have seen family members who passed away because they couldn't get the proper care that they needed, and they're angry. This is a sign of anger. They're mad about people like Martin Shkreli raising the prices on life-saving AIDS medication. They're mad about pharmaceutical companies, uh, you know, being totally capitalistic and only for profit, and researching drugs so they can get the newest drug and make it as expensive as possible. They're angry about the average person not being able to have insurance, or people living in fear because they're living paycheck to paycheck, that if they get in a accident and get seriously injured, that it could be a seriously it could cause a bill that could be a serious issue to their financial future, because of how expensive it is to get treated at the hospital, especially if you don't have insurance. So people are angry, they're upset, they're tired of this crap, and they're jaded. So when they saw this happen, the response was, well, screw that guy. You know what I mean? Like, people see it as this person has indirectly contributed to the deaths of many innocent Americans. So people don't feel sympathy for his murder. That's why.
Alone that other people were doing the same thing. Then she reposted a post from left-wing agitator Ken Klippenstein saying, today we remember the legacy of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. And what exactly was that legacy? The claim denial rates by insurance companies. And of course, it's not just Taylor Lorenz. Socialist Nathan Robinson, a complete useless leech on the ass of society.
Wow. What is your problem, bro? The guy is just a former political columnist for The Guardian. Obviously, you don't like the guy, but like, why are you having these unhinged descriptions of people before you quote them? Just read the tweets, Ben. Jeez.
Posted himself, quote, live your life in such a way that people will be sad when you die. That was above a screen cap of a New York Times headline that said, torrent of hate for health insurance industry follows CEO's killing.
Pretty much. I like that quote too. I think that is a good way to live your life. That's the whole point, you see? Like, people aren't sad about it. People are sad when a celebrity dies. When David Bowie died, when Michael Jackson died, people were devastated. Even though a huge amount of the public had, dislike for Jackson because of, his issues. Just on a side tangent, I will say, did Michael Jackson do it? Do I think he outright molested any children? I don't think so, but you cannot deny that what he did do, which is confirmed, was incredibly inappropriate, and that was wrong, and he should have known, and he knew that. He should have known that. Having kids in the same bed as an adult man when they are not, he's not their legal guardian or parent, and the parent or legal guardian is not present, and they're spending the night there, it's not appropriate. It was wrong. Even if nothing happened, it was still wrong, and he should have known better, and that was wrong. So that's my opinion on the subject. But still, a huge amount of people still love Michael Jackson, and were devastated. I think Michael Jackson is a great artist, and I was sad when he died because of just how messed up the situation was. Like, if you're not familiar with that, how the scenario leading up to his death, it's crazy. Anyway, yeah. So people are sad when celebrities die. People are sad when their family members die. They're not sad about this guy dying. The public didn't know who he was. And not only was he just a CEO, but he was a CEO for a major insurance company who, by the way, has one of the highest rates of denying coverage. Like, I found this image. I'm going to bring this up. I'll let the video play and then I'll bring this up. But people aren't sad about it. Like, why should they be? All right. I was kind of rambling and lost my train of thought, but let's continue.
That piece from the New York Times is all about people who apparently were perfectly fine with the murder of Brian Thompson on the streets of New York City. According to the New York Times, none of this stopped social media commentators from leaping to conclusions and showing a blatant lack of sympathy over the death of a man who is a husband and father of 2 children. Thoughts and deductibles to the family, read one comment underneath a video of the shooting posted online by CNN. Unfortunately, my condolences are out of network. A TikTok user wrote, quote, I'm an ER nurse, and the things I've seen dying patients get denied for by insurance, it makes me physically sick. I just can't feel sympathy for him because of all those patients and their families. And these sorts of messages were incredibly common across the internet. We discussed yesterday a Columbia professor who wrote something very similar. Unfortunately, bubbling under...
Yeah, you're right, Ben. Across the internet, bipartisan, despite people's political affiliation, people had these opinions. And yeah, the guy may have had a family, but like the nurse said, so did these other people. Like, I'm a pragmatist, all right? People die every single day. Literally, as I'm saying this sentence, people are dying. And there are people who die who are very nice people, who probably had a family, who maybe even died young, who maybe died in tragic circumstances. Happens all the time. And then there are people who die of old age, and they lived a full life, and they left their inheritance to their children, and they died surrounded by their loved ones, and it was really great, and it was expected, and they didn't suffer. And then there are people who die who are fucking assholes. And I'm sorry, but if I have to choose, I prefer that the assholes die. I mean, does that make sense? If I got to pick, if I had a Death Note, right? If you're not familiar with a Death Note, it's an anime where you write someone's name in a notebook and they have a heart attack immediately. There's some rules and stipulations to it, but for the sake of argument, if I had a Death Note and I could write the name of a healthcare CEO, or I could write the name of a family member, or, like I said, an old man who I don't know, who like I said, lived a full, long life, and was a good man, and was a good man to his family, and is gonna die in peace. I'm gonna write the name of the CEO. I'm gonna write the name of the asshole. Like, people don't have sympathy. It's for this guy for good reason. And it's not that they're totally fine with him being murdered. It's not that people are okay with murder. That's a misrepresentation. First off, it's hyperbole. People aren't glad that he got murdered. They lack sympathy that he died. So this is his fallacy here. This is his misrepresentation. They're not totally okay with murder. They're not totally okay with people being murdered and their ideological opponents being murdered, which is what he's going to say in a second. They lack sympathy for the fact that this person did die. Ben.
Under the surface of all this is something very serious, really serious. What is that serious thing? The revolutionary left is creeping into the mainstream. Yesterday we talked about liberals versus the left. Liberals are people who disagree with me on public policy, but aren't in favor of, the murder of their opponents. The left is a different thing. The shooting of Thompson has unleashed a wave of evil from members of the left. Thompson was not a criminal. He wasn't even an advocate of death, the way, for example, abortion or euthanasia advocates are. And by the way, murdering an abortionist or an advocate of euthanasia would be unjustifiable morally in a democratic system.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there, but look at this. So UHC was the company that this guy worked for. This was the CEO of. So this guy was the head honcho. That's another big reason why. Because this guy, it's not specifically that who this person was, it's what he represents. He was the CEO of the insurance company who had the most denial rates of basically any insurance company from the data I see here, look at the industry average, 16%. They denied people at a rate of 32%. That's double. Clearly that's unnecessary, right? Clearly they're denying more people than they have to. And this guy was CEO. He is directly responsible for this. So people are connecting the dots and saying, yeah, this guy might not be a criminal who went and stabbed somebody, but what difference does it make if his actions led to the death of people? What's the difference? So they don't have sympathy. It's not that they're okay with murder and they want their ideological opponents to be murdered. And it's not just the left. Again, this was a bipartisan response of people saying, yeah, fuck that guy. Fuck him. He deserved to die. And just the comparison that people who support that abortionists and euthanasia supporters, doctors who do the euthanasia, are like guilty of causing people's murders or guilty of killing people is bullshit, Ben. Abortion is not murder, because abortion is not infanticide, because abortion is not illegal. And murder is the intentional killing and ending of a life, ending of a person's life. Abortion is the termination of a pregnancy. I consider it to be the prevention of a life starting, not the ending of a life that has already started and the person is fully conscious and is able to make decisions and their life is ended against their will. Because euthanasia is done with the will of the person. It's because the person is likely suffering from cancer or a painful degenerative bone disease and says, hey, I'm 91 years old. They told me I have 2 months to live. I would prefer not to spend that 2 months withering to a skeleton and being in extreme pain and being so whacked out on morphine that when my grandchildren come to visit me before I die, their last image of their grandfather is that of a bag of bones who's too fucked up to talk to them. He would rather say, look, I want to be fat and healthy in my hospital bed, and I want to be conscious so my grandkids come and see me and they have their last image of grandpa that they remember will be a positive one. And then I check out and skip the 2 months of pain and suffering that's unnecessary and would die with dignity on his own terms. How can you? I don't understand the argument against euthanasia, like in the scenario I gave. But you know what it is? It's, oh, well, it's God. God is the only one who gets to decide when people die. God, it's God's will that this guy suffer. He's got to suffer and have his bone marrow eat itself from the inside until he, he dies in horrible agony. Shapiro. Look at those eyebrows. He's intense. Fuck you, Ben. Yeah, abortion and euthanasia, this is a bullshit equivalency, and you know it. You little Jew. I see your yarmulke. Shapiro.
Brian Thompson's great sin, according to these people, is that he was the head of a company that exists within a mixed private-public healthcare framework, and that he did his job.
That's one way to put it. I mean, do I need to bring up the graph again?
That's how health insurance actually works. Some things are covered, and some things are not. And you may not.
Yeah, but are the things that aren't covered, is it absolutely necessary that they're not covered? How can you say that they are only not covering the things that are absolutely necessary for them to not be able to cover when the industry standard is half of what they don't cover? I know that that's confusingly worded, but I think you guys get what I'm saying. Clearly, they're denying more people than they have to. So, no, he did his job poorly.
Not like the application of the coverage, and it may be bad. That is not an excuse for murder. But for the left, if you...
I agree. And murder is bad. The guy should not have been murdered. I don't support that. And I think the average person does not support that. Even the person posting these edgy tweets, and again, it's easy to be edgy on the internet, and people are angry. They're exaggerating. They're going with hyperbole. But people don't support murder. They're just lacking sympathy for this guy dying. There's a difference.
You hate the system, you are morally justified in murdering anyone who acts within the system.
Bullshit.
That means that if, like one Bernie Sanders follower did, you believe that private healthcare kills Americans, you can go around murdering congresspeople.
It's not private healthcare that kills Americans. It's the lack of healthcare that kills Americans, Ben.
I know we buried that one. The media pretended it never happened. Steve Scalise is
Bullshit. Are you kidding me? They did not bury that at all. That's a fucking lie, dude. Are you kidding me? Like, people don't talk about it anymore because it was years ago, but they did not bury that story at all. Are you kidding me?
still limping today because he was nearly shot to death by a Bernie Sanders fan who believed that being part of the quote-unquote system that didn't nationalize healthcare meant you were a murderer. This stuff means that if you don't like that health insurers often deny coverage for certain pre-existing conditions or non-covered doctors or medication, you can then murder the CEO of a health insurance company.
Nobody thinks that. And I don't support what that guy did to Steve Scalise either. I think that if you have a problem with politicians, then you should vote. Like, I will never support the outright violence and murder of anybody.
This is revolutionary leftist evil. And
It's just look at your own comment section. That's all I'm going to say, Ben. Look at your own comment section. Your own fans are telling you you're wrong.
it's evil for a couple of reasons. First, violence is not justified in a democracy where your say is part of the process.
Does that include police officers? The government uses violence to enforce its laws. And political violence is an inherent part of politics. It just is.
This is why democracies are generally good, because they outsource the violence to the government.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Revolution to overthrow tyranny is justified, but tyranny has to be actually real, and violence has to be the last resort.
So let me get this straight. Violence is not allowed in a democracy, but it's okay when the government is doing the violence. That's seriously your argument?
Like public policy in California. So I picked up my family and my company and we left. Okay, tyranny is not real in the case of healthcare in the United States, and violence is not being used as the last resort in this particular case. If you
I don't think anyone said that it was for either of those things.
perceive America to be a tyranny and violence to be the proper response, that is a call for unending violence until the system itself is changed. It's a call for revolution. When you say it's okay to murder CEOs on the street, that is a call for revolution.
Literally no one is saying that. Show me a tweet that says that.
Second, violence against members of private industry, that isn't even a protest of public policy. Let's be fair about this. That isn't even shooting politicians, which would be evil enough. It's even a different level of evil because it's a protest against the very system of free markets themselves. Brian Thompson isn't responsible for America's healthcare system any more than the head of CVS is responsible for America's trade system.
What? He may not be responsible for the entire system, but he's a huge symptom of the problem, and he is extremely influential in that system. So, like, I totally disagree.
Directing hatred against Brian Thompson is not about shaping public policy, because you could shoot every CEO in America and it wouldn't shape public policy.
It's not about, to quote the Joker, it's not about money, it's about sending a message.
It turns out that it's about trying to threaten anyone who engages in free markets at all. This is
What? What?
simply Marxist, leftist, radical evil. This person could just as easily have shot a doctor who decided not to perform a surgery, or shot a bank CEO who denied a loan application for a home.
What? Why? Do you know how to make an analogy? Do you know what an analogy is? Explain this shit.
It would have fallen under the same category.
Nope.
This, by the way, is not uncommon, unfortunately, in modern Western history. This was all the philosophy of the Red Army faction in Germany in the 1970s. That was known as the Baader-Meinhof gang. They weren't seeking a better world. They were seeking to tear down the world of capitalism on behalf of Marxist revolutionary evil. These are people who routinely quoted Herbert Marcuse and Antonio Gramsci. They called for revolution. Ulrike Meinhof, a left-wing radical journalist, led the way. She famously said, quote, "Protest is when I say this does not please me. Resistance is when I ensure what does not please me occurs no more." And that language is replete with echoes in today's society, from college campuses to left-wing media. That philosophy led the Baader-Meinhof gang to engage in routine assassination of everyone from industrialists like Hans-Martin Schleyer to Dresdner bankhead Jürgen Ponto to American soldiers in Germany.
I mean, you are grasping at straws here, Ben. I'm lost. I don't know what the freaking connection is to the healthcare CEO getting knocked off. Like, you're out in the woods. You're in the weeds, Ben.
These people also sometimes become the tools of enemy regimes. Baader-Meinhof certainly was. They worked with the Stasi, the East German Stasi, other Soviet agents to foment chaos. They coordinated with terrorist groups like the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine and the Palestine Liberation Organization itself. The origins of Baader-Meinhof came from the 1968 student protests in Germany. Does any of this sound familiar? They were Marxist in orientation. They were actually influenced by the 1965 Watts riots in the United States, radical race riots in the United States, in which violence was somehow justified. They allied with radicals all over the globe. They would read Che Guevara. They wrote essays defending the Munich massacre of Israeli Olympians by Palestinian terrorists. Stephen Ost is an author who literally wrote the book on the Baader-Meinhof gang. And he pointed out, quote, "The Baader-Meinhof gang drew a measure of support that violent leftists in the United States, like the Weather Underground, never enjoyed. A poll at the time showed a quarter of West Germans under 40 felt sympathy for the gang. 1/10 said they would hide a gang member from the police. Prominent intellectuals spoke up for the gang's righteousness, as Germany, even into the 1970s, was still a guilt-ridden society. When the gang started robbing banks, newscasts compared its members to Bonnie and Clyde. Andreas Baader, a charismatic action man indulged in the imagery, told people his favorite movies were Bonnie and Clyde, which had recently come out, and The Battle of Algiers, which is an anti-colonial propaganda piece on behalf of actual groups that would end up with an Islamic fascist regime in Algeria. The pop poster of Che Guevara hung on his wall. He paid a designer to make a Red Army faction logo, a drawing of a machine gun against
He's still going. He's still going.
a red star. So, with all this backdrop, what exactly are we supposed to make of journalists, pseudo
I have no fucking idea what you just said for the past, 2 minutes, Ben. So, I don't know. I think I'm gonna have to wrap up this video pretty soon. I can feel my fucking brain cells dying from this little Jew. Sorry. It's not because you're Jewish I don't like you, Ben. It's because you're wrong and you're a liar. Oh, and I love this. Facts don't care about your feelings. I'm also highly religious, Shapiro.
journalists like Taylor Lorenz or academics like that Columbia professor who proclaimed soft support for the murder of Brian Thompson? Well, I mean, I think that we should take it as a
Soft support? Soft support? That's what I give my wife at home, Shapiro.
leading, bleeding edge indicator that we are on the verge of something terrible. After all, these acts of violence, they're not quite as sporadic as they used to be. This follows hard on the Black Lives Matter riots, which...
Okay. I'm done. That's where I draw the freaking line. I don't know how you're going to connect this to BLM. I don't even care to listen. Ben, you are a liar. The response to the murder of this guy, which I do not support. I'm not going to say it's tragic, but he should not have been murdered. I don't think anybody should be murdered. But the response to the fact that he died was one of people saying, well, screw him. My cousin died because he got denied his insurance by that company. Or I saw these patients get denied insurance and they died. Or my kid died because he got denied because of a pre-existing condition. So screw that guy. I don't care that he died because I don't know him and I don't like the insurance companies in America. So people lack sympathy. And yeah, they made jokes and they made edgy memes. But it was not only from the radical left. It was unanimous and bipartisan. Like, show some tweets from your conservative viewers who also said, fuck that guy. Look in your own comment section. I'm going to put the link to Ben's video in the description. Go and read his comment section. It's a hoot. It's hilarious. And these are Shapiro fans. They're telling him, Ben, you're wrong. And, Michael Knowles is the same rhetoric. Fuck that guy. Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh is the worst. You want to talk about somebody who basically indirectly murders people? Matt Walsh made basically uh, because of Matt Walsh, a children's hospital got a bomb threat called into it because he said they were going to give gender affirming care to children, and one of his viewers called in a bomb threat to the children's hospital. So maybe don't throw dreidels in glass houses, Ben. I'll see you guys in the next video. Hope you guys enjoyed this.